Alright, and this is just a supplemental lecture. We aren't going to be dealing with roofs too much until project, I think, 2 or 3. So just keep this in the back of your head. I wanted to show you since I have this going on, and it kind of works along with this since we're covering kind of basic topics in Revit. So I'm just going to delete that floor that was there because technically if this is my second story, we don't put another third floor on it as a roof, we put a roof on it. So Revit has a roof menu, and again it's going to work very similar to the other ones. Now, um, by default it's going to give you this option for which one to move it to. So the roof is going to be centered on the floor you draw it on. So because I have a third floor, I'm going to want to put it on the third floor so that it'll sit on the top of this floor right here. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to hit yes. And then same idea, I need to modify my, oh that's RCP. You can tell these are different floor plans. Floor plans are kind of empty in the borders there, and then RCPs have a bunch of stuff in the borders there. So this is my level 3 floor plan, and so I'm going with the generic roof right here. I don't particularly care for roofs. It's a small thing that I have you guys add at the end of projects. Now, something else that you can do that I kind of want to bring this up on is the offset. So there's a 2-foot offset that's sort of a generic value used in a lot of construction here in California at least, where you have the overhang on a roof, and that's going to be a distance of 2 feet. So I'm going to draw this out right there, rectangle corner to corner, and it's going to create a roof. Now if I hit the green check mark on this, we're just going to end up with sort of a basic little peaked roof right here. There's a couple controls we have that we can modify with this. So first is going to be the slope, and the slope is determined by the number of inches it rises over a 12-foot distance. So in this case, this roof rises 12 inches for every 12 feet or 12 inches that it travels. So this is a 912 roof. If we do a 112 roof, it's going to be, oops, it's going to rise 1 inch for every 12 inches. So you can see it's a very shallow roof. 112 is also, I believe, code for wheelchair ramps, just to give you an idea of how steep of a slope that is. It's not uncommon for 412 to be pretty commonly used around in our area, just because we don't need to build whole huge roofs, and there's I think one of the main reasons to avoid it is wind, whereas say an A-frame in the mountains, you might end up with something that's greater than that. So you might end up with, I don't know what they do for A-frames actually. Okay, so 30 seconds of Googling didn't answer my question, so we're just going to say, let's say 3012. And that's kind of the roof slope that you'd get with an A-frame. That looks about right, I think. So just keep that in mind as you're working with roofs. Now the other thing I want to show you guys is the thing I told you earlier to not do. So I'm going to change this to 612. So we have a bit of a slope, and you can see that there's kind of like a gap in between here, right? Let me slide this over a little bit. You can kind of see that there's a gap, and you're just seeing kind of empty space in the top of this roof, right? So the one thing I told you to not do, I want you to do for roofs, and that is I'm going to select these walls right here, and then I'm going to choose this button that's attach top base. So if I click on that and then click on the roof here, you can see that it actually moved up, and now it's actually sticking to the roof there, so I can't see inside of there. If I control Z and undo that step, oh, it moves the camera too. But you can see that now there's that space right there. A way that we can make that more obvious is actually by modifying the roof slope here. So if I go back to edit footprint, or you can just double click on the roof, it brings back up these options right here. So if I was to select one of these, and you see there's this little slope right here. That little slope says this slope right here, this line right here, determines the angle of the roof. So if I uncheck the defines roof slope option, and then we hit the green check mark, you can see that this now no longer contributes a slope, it's just part of the roof itself. Alright, so we can go in there and we can modify this. So if I want to, oops, that wasn't a select, I can uncheck this for these two sides, and now we have just a sort of straight across two-face roof, right? And when we do that, now I can take the same option again, attach top base, and now you see that it fits real nicely there. You get kind of an even that space. And then one other option you can do is actually just doing a single slope roof, which I've had a couple people do successfully. So if we do just something like that, you see it contributes a fairly steep slope. If you're trying to get something that visually matches just right, you can grab these little pointers right here and drag the roof up and down to determine the slope. And those do exist um, here too as well. You can kind of just grab these and move them. But when I do have you guys put on roofs, I'm going to ask that you do put in an actual solid usable number. So in this case, it's 612 or something. Anywhere between 4 and 8 is probably fine for this class. So that's how you would build a roof right there. Any other time that you would build a roof, I would suggest making an exception for using a floor. Um, and when you do use a floor, let me delete that. So let me go back to level 3 here. Floor, and then let's say that you have a lightweight concrete on metal deck. You have this going through here, and then something I don't usually show to the class is going to be the slope arrow. And so if I put this point right here, let me see, make sure I don't get this backwards. No, I got it backwards. For sure got it backwards. Okay, yeah, I got that wrong. So we're going to leave this right here. Don't do the slope arrow. That's not what we want. That's a different thing I can add in. We'll cover that later on. So I have the floor right here. This is going to be our actual exterior finish concrete roof. We'll say don't attach, again, like everything else. And then we get the modify sub-elements. And so this is where we can place a point. Maybe you have this is a industrial roof of some kind. And so you have a series of, imagine it's not 10 by 10, it's 100 by 100. Then you would have certain areas where you would have a point like that, and that point would create a drain. So I would place that point there, and then we would change this point to be something like a ½ inch down. Yeah, that's fine. And so what that does is that creates a drainage spot where you could then put a drainage pipe. So again, usually every semester I get some students who put flat roofs on the house. Don't put a flat roof on the house. If you are going to have a flat roof, it needs to drain somewhere. So it should either drain like this or it should drain as a slope. But I don't want to see just flat roofs on top of things in this class. All right. So that covers everything for roofs. Again, it's a super basic topic. There's actually even less that you guys can do with them. So if you go into the edit type for roofs, you really it's just this, right? At least with the generics. And I'm not too concerned about them because this really isn't, you do have the whole settings here. But the generics work completely fine for this class because we are not really focused on roofs. So it's not a concern of ours necessarily. I just want you guys to be aware that those controls exist and that you can treat them just like you do walls, floors, and ceilings. All right. So that's going to cover this on roofs, and I'll see you guys in class.